Welcome back to Hot Flashes and Cool Topics, everybody. We are so excited today because we have Sharon Gless on today. And I know that, yes, yay, many of you know her from Cagney Lacey as Christine Cagney. And also she was on Queer as Folk, she played Debbie, which is such an important show for so many people. But she also has a book coming out December 7th, which is a great book. It's apparently there were complaints, but I am not complaining about this book. So welcome, Sharon Gless.
Thank you very much. You make the title sound so wonderful. I love the way
It's very creative.
It is a good title, isn't it? I wrote the title before I wrote the book.
I ask you that, if kind of a title of a book, what made you decide to write a memoir now?
Well, I wasn't so busy. And I got it. I went into, this is in the book, but it's a good story. It's very brief. I went into CBS to meet, I thought, on a new series, because Byrne noticed my show that I was in was about to end, and they knew it, so they called me in. They said, "Welcome home, Sharon." That's where Cagney Lacey was shot, and many other things I've done. And so I was in this long meeting with them, and telling stories, just trying to keep things alive. And after an hour, the head of CBS said, "Sharon, we own Simon & Schuster." That's nice. Good. They said, "We think you have a book in you." I said, I'm not really a writer. They said, "No, but you're a storyteller." Okay, so I let a year go by. I was the head of Showtime, the head of Simon & Schuster contacted me, and I sort of blew it off because I'm an actress. That's what I wanted to be. After a year went by, I wasn't so busy, and I went into New York, and I met him, and I'd written one chapter, and I read it to him, and he signed me. So that part is in the book. I try not to repeat stuff like that, but it's an interesting, your question, what am I doing writing a book? That's what I'm doing, writing a book. And it took me a long time.
It is fascinating. It really is. I love too that, it's a quick read. You read the chapters, and I don't want to put it down till I'm done with that section. I'm like, no. Okay, now I have to know what's her next story in this book. So it's a really great, easy, quick read, but it's very fascinating. I just think the life you have had has been extremely fascinating. And I think it's just great for people in general too, because somehow you went through things that maybe other people have gone through, and they feel like they're alone in it. And then when you've put it out there, it just makes people feel less alone.
Oh, well, good. I'm glad that's a result.
Yes.
Yeah. As you're doing it, I don't know if you're doing it really to help others, but it's fascinating, really, what we go through. And if somebody can relate to some of those stories, some are very funny. I used to write when I first started. My chapters were like 2 pages. I thought, that's good. And I got a note, I think, from Simon Schuster saying, "Sharon, I think we need to expand, a little more." And so
was that uncomfortable for you to think about, I have to tell these kind of harder parts of my life to the world?
No, I had total control over what I wrote. There are things that Simon Schuster pulled out that upset me. My husband has that expression about killing my babies. And that's a quote from some other famous writer. But Simon Schuster occasionally killed my babies and just said, "Sharon, it just doesn't fit. It doesn't work. Nobody cares." I care. So, but they were very generous. I had help. I mean, my husband and my friend, Dawn, people would read every chapter and tell me, well, not Dawn, but my husband, and tell me everything I did wrong.
In a loving way, though.
In a loving way. He wrote a book himself called Cagney Lacey and Me.
Oh, wow.
So he's not new to this arena,
right.
But I am. And it took 7 years. But
wow.
Now that we're at this part of it, I'm innately shy. Really. I mean, I've never played a shy person in my career. But now that it's done, obviously you want it to be well received. So far it has. And then this becomes the part where you want to be interesting in a conversation, and that has become my shyness starts to, or I fight it. Playing myself now. Who's that?
Well, that's true. But I mean, you certainly don't seem shy in the book. So
no, I'm not.
No, I just wanted to take it back kind of to the beginning. I think it's a great story with your grandfather being an attorney in the industry, but not wanting you in the industry. And you kind of started a little later. Can you talk about that part of your life?
Well, I remember being surprised when I think I was told I was around 18 when I had verbally said to my grandfather, I'm sure I just graduated from high school, and he said, so what do you want to be? What do you want to do? I think I want to be an actor. Stay out of it. It's a filthy business. Well, he became very famous in that filthy business. And I didn't have the nerve to say, but that's where you made all your money. How can you call it filthy? But in his position of being Katharine Hepburn's and Cecil B. DeMille's and Howard Hughes' attorney, I mean, he had the big ones. I'm sure he saw the side to show business as a lawyer that is pretty filthy, So I understand what he was saying, but he did help me in the end. I mean, no one ever helped me get a job in my family. I did it all on my own. I didn't know that he'd written the first contract between a studio and a player when actors belong to studios. He looked at the contract, he burst out laughing, said, that's my contract. And, it's many years later.
Sign it, I think is what he said.
Yeah, I said I wanted to make more money. $200 a week as a secretary. I worked behind the camera in the industry. The studio was offering me $186 a week. What? But I'd be paid every week whether I worked or not. I had a home, and there was somebody who believed in me, the woman who signed me. So anyway, I showed it to Grandpa. I said, I thought actors made a lot of money. He said, do you want to be an actor, Sharon? I said, yes, Grandpa. He says, then sign it. You have to be coming from a position of power from which to negotiate. You're not.
Yeah.
So I signed it, and my life was forever changed. I read a chapter in the book as an homage to those years. It will never exist again. I'm the last contract player in the history of Hollywood.
I was going to mention contracts because you mentioned Robert Wagner in the book as well. But I remember listening to something with Robert Wagner talking about when he was on contract, how fantastic it was that, hey, I got to go work out. I was still being paid.
Right.
If a role came up, and
it wasn't in the era where they also gave you writing lessons, It wasn't that era. But if you got a show or a movie where you had to ride horses, they'd take you to a class. But they didn't train you at all in those days, in the latter days. They either got it or you ate.
So you were on house calls when they first time they offered you the role for Cagney and Lacey's. Am I correct?
You're right. Yes.
Okay. So and you weren't too keen on Cagney and Lacey.
No, the first time they offered. No, I wasn't actually. The first time they offered me Cagney and Lacey, I didn't like the script. I just played a cop in a pilot, didn't sell, and I didn't want to be someone who's walking around packing a rod, and I didn't want to do it. So I turned it down. It was a TV movie. It wasn't a series yet. Because as a contract player, they could loan me out to any studio they wanted, charge them a horrendous amount, I'm sure. I'd still get my $186. But for Cagney and Lacey, then it went to series. They hired Loretta Swit to do Cagney. But then it went to series, and Loretta had to go back to MASH. And so Barney Rosenzweig approached me again. And I had just been asked to do house calls. And besides, it being a series, I'd have to turn him down because, as I said, contract players at Universal were not allowed to do series unless it was a Universal show. So then they got Meg Foster to play with Tyne. And that show didn't last. That coupling did not last. Meg's a wonderful actress. I think there was just a lack of chemistry between the two. They were very similar. So then Barney offered this show to me again, and I was about to say, I'm sorry, but I'm in house calls. And he'd already been to New York to find out what was the new schedule. And house calls had been canceled. He said, bet me you're going to be in house calls. They just canceled your ass. So, pardon me.
Oh, fine.
You're all right.
And so it's in the book. Anyway, yes, I eventually got smart enough to accept the role. Barney's always said that actors are not always the best judges of material. And in my case, that was certainly true.
And he was very dedicated. He wanted you. And when he first saw you, it was in Turnabout?
It was in Turnabout, right, where I was playing the man trapped inside a woman's body. And he looked at the film because his wife at the time was one of the story editors on Turnabout. So she went home and she told Barney, I just found Cagney. He said, really? I said, yeah, watch this. And he ran the film for him. And Barney said, Nah. So then, I don't know, a few weeks later, they went to a screening and I was in the room, those big screenings they do in Hollywood. I was in the room and he looked up and he turned to Barbara and he said, there's Cagney. I played Carol Lombard. And Barbara said, that's Sharon Gless, the one I was telling you about before. I said, oh, well, I was wrong. You were right. Yes, that's Cagney. So thank you, Carol Lombard.
Yes. And I remember seeing that. That was the Search for Scarlet, or I forgot
The
what,
Scarlet O'Hara Awards.
or the Scarlet O'Hara Awards.
Yeah,
I
Garson
remember
Kanin.
when that was out on TV, I was watching that, and when you said I played Carol Lombard, I remember that scene very well, where she's with
Thank
Clark Gable. Yes, that was really a great scene.
She didn't want to do it. She didn't want to play Scarlet.
Right.
And she was right. She was totally wrong for it.
Yeah.
But every other actress in Hollywood wanted that part.
Yeah. And Cagney and Lacey is such a great show for women. It just brought so much power for women with that show. And, when I was reading your book, I didn't remember how they canceled it. And then the letter writing campaign started.
Barney started that.
Oh, wow.
Really?
He called Tyne to me saying, are you getting any mail? I said, yeah, we are. He said, would you mind if I send a driver? I'd like those letters. Sure. He had every single person who wrote. He didn't handwrite, but he composed a letter and sent a letter to every single person in the United States who wrote, complaining, explaining that they do have power. And I believe he said, send it to your local TV station and the New York Times. And he said, because my belief is that CBS always reads their newspapers. I mean, they don't read the newspapers, don't read their fan mail, but they always read their news. Well, this deluge came from every city in the United States, bags and bags of it, unopened by the New York Times, not unopened by the local stations. But fortunately, they just put it all in these bags, and CBS was overwhelmed, and they called Barney and said, we made a mistake. Which is kind of sweet because they canceled our contracts. They threw us out. Nothing. There was nothing to hold us to them anymore. So that was a very sweet negotiation. I'm not gonna say.
Yeah.
So kind of worked in your benefit there on that one.
Yeah. Actually, we became the highest paid women in television at the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
We failed to ask what the men were making, but anyway, still.
You were negotiating from a point of strength, like your grandfather said. Then you had the power.
You're right. I never even thought of that. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Yeah, he was right.
True. You had the strength there. They had something that you had something.
They had something that we had something they wanted.
Exactly.
And then we were canceled, and then we got nominated for Emmys, and we didn't exist anymore. So anyway,
how are we going to do that?
Right. Well, Tyne Daly won the Emmy.
Yeah,
so that was
all the other nominees.
Yeah,
but then you won. So there
I
you
did.
go.
Yes.
Eventually. While we were on the air, no other woman ever won the Emmy. It was either Tyne or me. 6 years.
That's amazing.
6 years. No other woman ever won the Emmy. It was either Tyne or me.
Wow.
And it's not, I can't see it's because we're so brilliant. We had the material, it was the 80s. We had the material that they'd never seen before. They'd never seen two women in a series before. I mean, we weren't Lucy and Ethel, these were two serious women.
Yeah, doing an important job. Yes.
Right.
Doing an important job and building a relationship that was unusual. They were not best friends at all, but their lives depended on each other. Barney said in a fairer world, he said he could have written that thing in the post office because it's really about the two women, not what we do for a living. Making us cops obviously was tense and life-threatening, but they were never best friends ever, their lives. So it's a very rare relationship, and certainly very rare show to be on television.
Especially working relationships between women. And I wonder.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The press tried to say that we were fought all the time like cats. And I listen, I would tell you, sometimes it was never. Tyne Daly is the most generous actor I've ever. I say that in the book too. I don't say it enough times. And now we're really close. We talk on the phone every day. But when we were shooting, we never did. All we saw every day for what? How many hours? 12, 16, 18 hours a day. It was the two of us, always in every scene.
That's amazing.
At the end of the day, she'd want to go home to her children. And I'd want to go drink with somebody. Anyway.
I don't think people realize that. that you were in every scene together on that.
The only scenes one of us was always on screen. There was never a scene. But if she was home with Harvey and the kids, happily, I was there. And if I'm out drinking with my father or shooting pool or getting drunk with somebody or alone, she was never there. But always we were on camera, one of us.
That's amazing.
That's how Barney devised.
When you walked on the set having other women portray the character before, how was that for you? What was that experience like?
In that particular instance, I mean, I replaced Lynn Redgrave in House Calls. I'm becoming sort of the Hollywood troubleshooter, and it wasn't a comfortable position. I knew that the success of this show, not certainly more than Tyne, but I was being brought in because if it didn't work, we were over. So it was a lot on my shoulders. It had to work with Tyne Daly and Sharon Gless, and it had to work with Cagney and Lacey. It had to. We had no show. So, needless to say, it was hard, high pressure on me. Tyne is, as I've said, the most generous actress. She's just, and there were times when there was something I knew we had to build different qualities, because I think that was the problem before. There were things I wanted to do that I would ask of Tyne, that not things she wanted to do, would highlight Cagney. And she always went with whatever I suggested, not because I was trying to make Cagney the star, but Cagney in her own mind is a star, in her personal mind. I asked Tyne, do you mind if I enter first? With my guns drawn, because following her just diminished Cagney, and that isn't who I was building. And she said, this is a hard question. I said, I'm aware, but I'm asking. And she said, if it's that important to you, yes. So that's how these characters emerged. Cagney was reckless, but Cagney didn't have anybody to go home to. So what? Mary Beth had children, so she was more cautious. She was just as great a cop, maybe better. But asking her that question, but I knew it would change who we were. I just couldn't have Cagney be this, okay, I'll follow you anywhere. There's no conflict. And slowly these personalities came forward. And I really saw Mary Beth's character really becoming richer and fuller and better by letting Cagney be this jerk that she works with, and the personalities started to be built. The second year of Cagney and Lacey, Barney brought in a writer just to write Cagney's dialogue, because I think they weren't sure, what do you do with her? We've tried twice already, and a woman was brought in just to write. Being as generous as she was to let Cagney shine. She's the one who won the 4 Emmys, so please, I won too. There's nothing wrong with Cagney's ability.
We're going to keep reminding you won too.
You won also, yeah.
I won too, that's right.
Yes, yeah.
We thought I was going to win the third one. We did, but it did go back to Tyne, fortunately. So it always stayed in the family.
One of the things I really appreciated when I was reading your book and doing the research is that, just like you said, you were so thoughtful in what Cagney would do, and you were powerful on and off camera. So you had opinions, you were willing to state them, and you didn't want to be a victim. You kept saying, whatever it is, I don't want Cagney to be a victim.
That's right.
Why did you feel that was so necessary for the character?
Because I don't think she'd allow it. She'd walk over anybody to get a job. She hurt people's feelings. She didn't mean to, but I just never saw her as any. When she finally admitted what an alcoholic she was, I didn't take it as her being a victim. I took it as that's who she is. She was born that way. But that alcoholism, although it became tragic, I don't think that she ever consciously felt that bad things were going to happen to her. She was good at her job. She was going to be the first female police commissioner. She drank a lot. Why? Maybe because there was a victim in there somewhere. She certainly became a victim to alcohol. But she was a toughie. She was the tough one. Some of it may be bull. For maybe Cagney would sometimes perform, but I think it was very important to her how she was perceived. There was a scene, I don't think I put this in the book. I was just talking about it, but I didn't share this with you. There was a scene that was written where Mary Beth, we're all in the lieutenant's office. The lieutenant says something crude like, what's the difference between rape and romance? And Tyne's character, Mary Beth, says, well, Lieutenant, if you don't know the difference between rape and romance, you've got a problem. Mary Beth was always the good one. She'd never sass an official. She was so wonderful. When she's working at her desk, she has her sleeves rolled up. Whenever she's called to the lieutenant's office, she always It's a characteristic she built for herself. She'd always roll down the sleeves, make sure her hair looked nice. It's just who she was, Cagney. And anyway, if you don't know the difference in rape and romance, you go to pop. She leaves. She walks out of the office, and we're there with all the guys. And I didn't have a line. I didn't say anything, and I knew Cagney must have some remark. So they called Barney Rosenzweig in. Saying what seems to be the problem. I said, I need a line here for Cagney. Lieutenant just said something that offended Mary Beth and would offend all women. And this is what this show's about. I'm standing here, And he said, and you're not going to get a line. I said, what are you talking about? This was the second year. They were still trying to figure out who this character was. You're not going to get a line because that's who Cagney is. She's not going to blow off the lieutenant, all the guys. She wants to be one of them. So she stayed quiet against her part. I said, but I'm doing this against Lacey. Barney said, that's right. And that's who she is. She wants to be one of the guys. No, you're not getting a line. A really terrific woman. She had problems. She had dreams, but they're always for her.
It's so character.
Yeah.
Best character ever done on television, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Serious.
And you create a backstory. It sounds like you and Tyne created a backstory for your characters as well. Like you're like, well, Christine's an Irish descent.
They built those into the script. We never talked about it.
Oh, you did?
No.
Okay.
No, Tyne and I never talked about it. It was so built in the script to Cagney. She was an Irish kid with an Irish cop father. And they finally did an episode about her mother, who nobody ever talked about. She lived with her father. And they did a very touching. I'm so proud of this show. Now I'm being given an opportunity to say it was really swell. It changed the history of television for women. But anyway, we found out who her mother was, and we did one scene in Hancock Park, which is very Tony, very high-end area of Los Angeles. We drive up to a house where she tells Lacey this is where she was born and raised till she left. And it was a very palatial home. And Cagney had a trust fund. I mean, she dressed well. And there's one scene where it's divulged. There's a scene where there's a show, something about her mother dying. So occasionally they would sneak in things about the other half of her. I mean, she had this Irish cop who everybody knew was the father. But there was also a mother. And Cagney lived in a great loft. I mean, she clearly had some dough. She never talked about it, never threw it around, never wore jewelry. It wasn't like that, but she did have advantages. But part of coming out of that section of her life was pain.
But the characters were so ahead of time for that. Even
yes.
it being the 80s, they were complex women that you hadn't seen before on television.
Right. First time, we'd get excited when we get some of the scripts. Some of the scripts were so daring that there were certain affiliate stations that refused to air them. I think the one we had on abortion, there were maybe 4 or 5 that affiliate stations refused to air. They were just too daring. But the rest of the United States, obviously saw them. And it changed the history of television for women. We weren't playing the secretary. Not that there's anything wrong with, you know what I'm saying? Right. We were given 2 mighty, mighty roles. It just had never happened. And very seldom have I ever seen a duplicate. That kind of show.
Powerful, complex women. That's true.
Well, yeah, as female leads, as the leads,
yes,
as the carrying the show. That's what I mean. There are wonderful female characters that are on television now, but there are very few shows where 2 star in it and carry it. Mm-hmm. There's one I just love, and forgive me, I can't. There is an attempt there and done beautifully.
But I think it was so great. I was in the 80s. I graduated high school in the mid 80s, right. And I think it was great to have something there for Colleen. You and I are about the same age, and have something there for people our age to say there are options for you. If you're a young girl, like you said, being a secretary is not bad. It's not.
Oh, of course. I was a secretary.
Yeah.
I worked behind the camera for many years.
Yeah. Being
a nurse. Cool job.
It's your typical roles that women had on TV. You didn't see that as often. And then you have 2 female police officers on TV. And for someone like Colleen and I, other girls that are women that were our age, in the mid 80s, that was like, okay, look at that. This happens. And I know it's a TV show, but it representation, like everybody says, it's important. And I think it was important to have something there.
I think politically it was very important.
It was very
Um,
important.
I've had many, many young women tell me over the years, I joined the police force because of you. I want to go, are you crazy? You could get killed. This is a TV show. But just recently I met one who said, I finished, remember, I don't know if you remember, Mary Beth wanted to quit after 20. She just wanted to put her in her 20, get her benefits, and go home and be a mom. Cagney couldn't relate to that country. She'd be in it for the rest of her life. But this woman told me, I just finished my 20. I'm retired now. I said, God bless you, because you could have gotten killed. You know, this show, because the characters were, I think, romantic. I think Cagney and Lacey are very romantic. And, but that wasn't a romantic job. We weren't written as romantic characters at all.
Mhm.
But just the spirit of each of them individually was just so, we gave such permission to women out there, not to be a cop, just to be a friend, follow your dreams, don't be afraid.
It's true.
What are you waiting for?
It's pretty
Mhm.
incredible that you know the influence the show had, like that you get to see it even today. That
Well, I realized it. We didn't know at the time. When we were shooting it, we had no idea what the show would be. We had no idea the impact we were having on it. We're a bigger hit in Great Britain than we are in our own country. Prime Suspect, I believe, is when they did. The author of it told me, she said, I did it as an homage to Cagney and Lacey. It just allowed people to dream. I want to be like that. Whatever that is. You know, I wouldn't say that Cagney is a great role model. But people seem to love her, you know, with all her flaws.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was unusual to see a woman who was not wanting to get married, even though later they did have her get married, not wanting to get married, not wanting to have children. You were not thrilled to come back and then marry you off.
I was furious. I thought it was probably the worst mistake Barney Rosenzweig had ever made. I said, are you crazy? I was so angry. I just thought, this is drastic. I said, what is she? Is she on the booze again? Is she on something? How has she changed? And I was so fighting with him so hard. He said, I didn't say she'd stay married. So how long do I have to do this? He said, well, you'll see. Anyway, she didn't make it. The marriage didn't make it. It was so wrong. For her, I don't know, marriage is wrong. It just, she wasn't good material for being with one man and committing to somebody else. I mean, she was totally committed to herself. I make you sound like a terrible person. She wasn't. She was
No.
fabulous. She was
Complicated. She was
Yeah.
complicated. Yes, she was.
Yes. Yes.
which is not a bad thing.
No.
She was the adult child of an alcoholic. Charlie Cagney was a raging alcoholic. A lot of our scenes together were out of pain. She didn't know she was an alcoholic. Barney finally brought it up. He said, you said you never wanted to be a victim. You want to start investigating this disease she obviously has? And I said, well, I was told by this interviewer that I'm doing this, and I'm doing that, and doing that, and doing that. And that's all the signs of an adult child of an alcoholic. So I go to Barney and I said, I'm playing all these signs of an adult alcoholic. He said, honey, I didn't write it. You're the one who's playing it. You're bringing the quality to it. And he said, do you want to investigate it? You want to put her in that kind of pain? I said, sure. So 2 scripts were written, a 2-parter, and brought me into his office, handed it. He said, no one else has seen it, just you. And go home and read it and tell me what you think. The next morning I came to his office and I said, it's brilliant. You're going to get to play it. I thought it was way over my head. Clearly it wasn't. I thought it was a beautiful 2-parter. And it changed a lot of women writing in, and men too, saying, I want my child to see this because I know she's starting to drink. Or people would write in saying, I want my dad, my mom to watch this episode because I'm afraid that, my dad's going to die like Charlie. And it's so interesting now in my dotage to realize the power that show had and still has. And what an honor that I got to play her. And then I got to end up being best friends with Tyne Daly.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
It's amazing
I'm
that
going to
your
Los
friendship-
Angeles tomorrow, and she's the first person I'm seeing.
That your friendship has
wonderful.
lasted this long is a wonderful.
It's deepened.
testament.
We weren't this close when we were shooting together because we had our lives were totally making these characters. See you tomorrow. Yeah, right.
You needed that break at that point.
Well, those long days on set, and she had children at home, and long days on set, I'm sure you want to just get out of there. Yeah.
Yeah,
But-
exactly.
So when you're acting in this complicated show, but your life offset is getting complicated as well. You're in a relationship with Barney, and the media is starting to get a hold of that, and you're going into rehab a little bit. And Cagney Lacey ends.
And I'm still here.
And that's what I was gonna say. What was it like when that all kind of came at you at once?
I remember it like it was yesterday, but I can't. And I remember feeling, I can't recall feeling it again. Sometimes those times it's just so painful that you, and I turned out all right, you know. So Barney produced another series for me called The Trials of Rosie O'Neill. And in one episode, I have to play Rosie as another character on a bar singing, like a bar singer. And the opening song was, "And I'm Here. I've been good times, bad times." You know that one? I've been ill and I'm here. And that's sort of how I feel. I've been through a lot. My life has always been great, even the bad times. I'm just very blessed, and I'm a dreamer. You know, I have these dreams. I still dream. I have another series, and it's going to happen.
Oh, we believe that.
I think it will happen. Yeah, I have no doubt. Well,
Thank you.
So you have been in more series on TV, except for Betty White, right? Is she the other actress?
Right.
Yes.
Well, Betty's been in 10.
10. But
Right.
you've been
This
in
is,
more series.
I learned this, honest. I'm not that conceited. I don't go look up facts like that. I gave an interview a couple of weeks ago, and this man had really done research on my competition and stuff, you know, and he listed all the actresses. There are the 2 other actresses in my category who'd done one. And forgive me, I can't remember their names. Because one was very famous, one I did not know of. There were 2 other women who had done 9. Betty White is the only one who's done 10. I mean, 10 that were successful. I've done 9 hits. And so I know one more in me.
Yeah, it's really amazing all the people that you include in the book and the stories behind
the great stories.
And
Thank you.
the character of Debbie from Queer as Folk, I just feel that's another, you've really had some important characters that just, it's almost changed some people's lives, especially
I went after that one.
You went
I
after,
went
yes.
after that.
Yes.
I went after it. I've never done that before, but I went after that one and I got it. I just knew there was something very special about her, and the show itself was shocking. I mean, the nudity and the sex on camera, not to be sensational, it's just part of their lives. You know? When I went on the interview, they Showtime. I was in a plane in Chicago, and I flew into Chicago. They flew me in just to meet the producers, and I said, "Are you going to shoot what I read?" You know, so many times pilots are written and they're sensational and they get the backing for it. That isn't what they shoot. You know, that's the money they got on the page. So I asked the producer, I said, "Are you going to shoot what I read?" He said, "Every scene." I said, "Then send me in, coach, because I want to be a part of this one." They never let me on the set when the sex scenes are happening. But I said, that's my son. I said, "Go to your room, Sharon."
Well,
But we all became very, very close.
But it was just
really
so,
the mom really shouldn't be on the set during the sex.
during that. But
Oh, Sharon wanted to be on the set.
Sharon did. Yeah. Yeah. But, you know, it was so important because at that, and it still is ongoing, but I feel like it's gotten better. But so many people don't want it to come out. And they were going to they ran the risk of losing their families. Their families wouldn't accept them. And I feel like Debbie's character was just someone that just showed, I'm a mom, I have a child that's gay, and I love my child.
It's safe.
Yes. And
because the alternative, I don't think being gay is easy. You finally do realize this is who I am. Yeah, there were suicides galore.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a boy write me once saying, "You know, I want to thank you so much for this portrayal of the mom." And he said, it's given me strength and courage to go out there. And he said, "My best friend was gay, but he didn't make it. He committed suicide because he didn't have your show." We get letters like that because we didn't have your show. Show us that it was okay.
That's powerful.
it's very powerful.
I'm telling you, sorry, I have nothing to do. I'm not taking a bow for that one. I'm saying the show was so courageous and apparently saved many lives.
And I think the LGBTQ community was always pretty supportive of your characters. I think somewhere you said that Cagney, a lot of people thought she was a lesbian, and
right,
because of just
that'd be okay with me, you know, be more interested. But in those days, they didn't write characters.
But you think because she was so complex and powerful and male, like her strength in a male-dominated business.
Are you talking about Cagney?
Yes.
Yes.
Cagney.
Do you think that's why they thought that she was a lesbian?
I don't know. She dressed. That isn't how they started Cagney out. They had me Farrah Fawcett hairdo and wearing skirts and, and I talk about that in the book. What I did to change that image. And so maybe it was the way she dressed. Maybe it's because she was tough and hiding. I think Cagney always hid. I don't know what it was about her, but I know I used to have press when they interviewed me, said, of course you're gay. I said, would they say gay? That's right. Of course you're gay. I said, actually, I'm not. I'm sometimes festive, but no, I'm not. And they never believed me and I didn't care. Thank you. It's a compliment. I'm glad, they find that strong energy. I mean, we all come in with our stuff.
What do you say you have one more in you? What would you be looking for that final kind of role that would be perfect for you?
Well, I don't know. There's such wonderful things on television. I just want them to admit this is still TV. People get snobby, but you were on television. Well, now people in motion pictures can't get arrested. They're flying to television.
That's true.
It's a great, powerful medium. Yes, I do have an idea, but I'm not going to tell you.
Okay.
We don't want anybody to take it.
I hope I get to play it.
Oh yeah, I hope so too. Mm-hmm.
And then we'll have to have you back on to talk about that too.
I would be honored. This has been so much fun. You guys are so skilled. You're very skilled, and you make me very comfortable.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate that.
Yes.
And we appreciate that Barney set up the camera and did the lighting and.
I know.
Yes.
He's a good man.
He's a good one.
Yes. And we appreciate that we were able to read the book, and we're so excited about the release of it. So
Apparently
December 7th.
There were complaints.
Yes.
Which I just love the title.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
December 7th, is Pearl Harbor Day. And I'm not letting that bother me. Because there is energy in the air, and this is going to be all good energy.
Yes.
And also December 7th is when Barney asked me to marry him.
Oh, that's
I don't know if that's good or bad. You'll have to read the book.
Read the book. You'll read about that in the book. That's right.
You're happy, so it's good. There you go.
It's good. Yeah.
And I've
been blessed all my life, really.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I mean, there's tragedy in everybody's life. But I'm a survivor, and the thought of not making it I don't understand.
Well, you have made very well, and that story of your life, it's just a great memoir. It's like
Thank you. I'm so excited.
It's like you're walking
now I'm a
along
writer.
with you.
Yes.
You can write the next. Then you can write the next one that you're in.
I don't know if I can do it. There are boxes in storage with enough material for 2 or 3 more.
3 days. Oh,
but it took me 7 years, guys.
But I can believe it. Every time I'm terrible about putting thoughts on paper. I think about it and then I'm like,
But it makes you remember these great parts of your life, which is wonderful,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so much more I could tell, but they only gave me 330 pages. But I was first criticized that my chapters were too short because I write just about me and someone else. I don't make it an epic journey. Each story is personal, and I was making them very short. And that was the first time I got a complaint. And Simon Schuster figured we may need a little more than
a critique, not a complaint, just a critique.
That's right. That's right.
A little more description. And the story is in there. I mean, the story of the way you were proposed to, and just all that stuff. They're great. People are going to love the story.
Yes.
That story. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
She's looking right at Barney like,
and the wedding.
Yes.
Yes.
I
You'll
know.
have to read that.
Total
Yes.
disaster.
But we don't want to share too much because the book is
It's
coming out
great. You need to
December
read it
7th.
yourselves. Yes.
Thank you so much, you guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for wanting to interview me or agreeing to interview me, or however.
We wanted to.
It was
a
a
gun to your head. I apologize.
No, we
the
wanted.
minute we saw that you were coming out with a memoir, we were like, okay, here we go. We want her on the show. So.
Yes.
Thank you for being
Colleen
so
and Bridget, my Irish comrades. And Sharon's an Irish name too.
That's true.
There you go. That's why we get along so well. Yet my last name is Rosenblum, so gotta figure that out.
Rosenzweig.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Have a wonderful day, and thank you so much
Thank
for
you
your
so
time.
much.
Thank you very much. You made this so easy. I was
Oh,
nervous at
great.
first, but
Oh, please don't be.
I'm not
Don't
now. I
be.
want to
Yes,
keep going.
yeah.
But hey,
You know what?
Time.
Anytime you want to come back, we
Anytime.
are
We're here.
thrilled to
Yes.
talk to you.
Yes.
I get to talk about myself.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Anytime.
Thank you guys.
Thank you so
Have a
much.
wonderful evening.